You're watching part of our series on building garage storage racks. The racks are perfect for beginners, cheap to build, and are an excellent storage solution. In this episode, we will be building the 6 wide by 5 tall storage rack. The video is split into 2 parts. First, the Home Depot version tailored for their 27-gallon HDX black and yellow totes. Second, a modified design to fit the 27-gallon black and yellow totes from Costco, Lowe's, and Sam's Club. After nearly a year of full-time work, I am excited to introduce SnapSort AI. It's a system designed to help you manage the items in your totes. It's an organization app where AI does all the boring parts for you. Slap a sticker on your tote, scan it once. Now it's in the app, ready for your items. Snap a photo of your item. AI reviews the shot and writes out the description terms automatically. No typing necessary, making searching for your items later easy. Months later, search for boxing gloves. The app points you right to the tote. No more digging. You are in control of borrowing, moving, or deleting items. Invite your family to your workspace and organize together. Free to try on iOS and Android. Link below. This part of the video is about the 6 long by 5 tall tote rack. This tote rack is specifically designed for the Home Depot HDX 27-gallon totes. The overall dimensions of the rack are 132 3/8 of an inch long. The rack is 28 1/4 inches deep, and it is 83 11/16 inches tall. The first thing you're going to need to do is gather your materials. You're going to need a combination of 26 2x4s that are 10 feet long and 4 2x4s that are 12 foot long. Do not use the longer boards just yet. That will be towards the end of the build. The first cut you're going to make is to cut 60 identical shelf supports. These are going to be cut at 28 1/4 inch long. Now, if you look carefully, I cut the shelf supports here at a 45-degree angle for 2 reasons. Easier sliding, the angle guides the tote into the rack, and also tote protection. It prevents the tote flaps from catching on the sharp 90-degree edges. So how do you make this cut? Very easy. You're going to take your 28 1/4 inch long 2x4, and then about halfway through the 2x4 at about 3/4 of an inch, go ahead and cut off this blue part at about 45 degrees. So do the same thing on the other side as well. All right, the next thing you're going to do is make these ladder structures. So here we have the shelf supports represented in white and a new 2x4 piece that is 80 11/16 of an inch long. This new piece is going to be incorporated with the shelf supports at the following kind of distances. The first shelf support is going to be attached at 11 inches away from the edge. The second one is at 12.5 inches, 12.5 inches, 12.5 inches, 12.5 inches, and then the last one here should have 2 3/16 of an inch left over. So to attach these together, you're going to need 2.5 inch long screws. I definitely recommend that you pre-drill and countersink these screws to make sure that the wood doesn't split, and then also use wood glue for additional strength. You will need a total of 7 of these ladder structures. Now, some of these are going to undergo a modification. The modification is to add an additional layer of shelf supports directly on top of the old ones here. So the distances are going to be exactly the same. 11 inches from the edge for the first one, then 12.5, then 12.5, 12.5, 12.5, and then 2 3/16 of an inch should be what's left over there. Just like before, go ahead and use 2.5 inch long screws, pre-drill, countersink, and use wood glue for added strength. So you should have at this point a total of 5 double-sided ladder structures and then 2 single-sided ladder structures. The next step is going to be to integrate everything together. So we are introducing a new 2x4 lumber piece that is represented in the blue here. These are identical. It is 132 and 3/8 of an inch long. So you're going to use the 12-foot long boards for this cut. So you're going to attach the single-sided ladder structure with the ladder structure facing inwards using 3.5-inch screws on the edge here, wood glue. I definitely recommend you pre-drill and countersink here as well. So the next step would be to add the other single-sided ladder structure. Again, facing inward, 3.5-inch screws, pre-drill, countersink, and add that just like before. Now for the inside of the rack, we're going to be using the double-sided ladder structures. These are all going to be added identically. So they're going to be spaced out at 20 and 5/16 of an inch away from the other 2x4 here. So the edge of this green 2x4 to the edge of this green 2x4, it's 20 and 5/16 of an inch distance. So you're going to use 3.5-inch long screws, pre-drill, countersink, and use wood glue. And you can use a spacer to make sure that the spaces are even. If you want to also start one from the edge, and then kind of work your way to the middle, that will also look neater as well, just in case you're off by a little bit. So the next step here will be to add the second double-sided ladder structure. Again, 20 and 5/16 of an inch. Use 3.5-inch long screws, pre-drill, countersink, use wood glue. You're going to add the next one just like before, and the next one, again, 20 and 5/16 of an inch. And then the last one here is going to be 20 and 5/16 of an inch from the edge here and from the other one here. So everything should line up nicely together. All right, now to complete this, you're going to need to add 2 remaining 2x4s. These are going to be 132 and 3/8 of an inch long. So these are the other 2 12-foot long boards from before. They are identical to the bottom 2 as well. Use 3.5-inch long screws to secure this together. Pre-drill, countersink, and use wood glue. Now this rack is pretty big, so I highly recommend that you add these L-shaped corner kind of braces. I purchased mine on Amazon, and I really like it because the holes are drilled more towards the center of the brace or the bracket, and this helps make for a stronger connection. I'm going to link those in the description below. So where are these going to be added? They're going to be added to the top and to the bottom of the rack. So they're just going to go on the edges here. All right, now I used only 3 screws like that. I think it would be overkill to do the other 2 as well. So go ahead and add all of the screws and add those braces in place. Your rack should be very sturdy at this point. But you're not done. This is a huge rack. It definitely needs to be secured to the studs of the garage wall. So what I have here are these strong ties, these L-shaped strong ties that you can purchase at stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, or on Amazon or other places as well. So I'm going to remove the drywall here so we can see a little bit better. These need to align with the studs of the actual garage so that you're not attaching the rack to the drywall, because that'll be very weak and it won't hold it. So you're going to need 1-inch screws to attach the brackets to the actual rack, and then 3.5 or 4-inch long screws to attach the bracket to the actual studs of the garage. This part of the video is about the 6 wide by 5 tall rack. This rack is specifically designed for the Costco, Lowe's, and Sam's Club 27-gallon tote. The overall dimensions of the rack are 136.5 inches long. The rack is 30.25 inches deep, and it's 80 7/8 of an inch tall. The first thing that you're going to need to do is to gather your supplies. You're going to need a combination of 30 2x4s that are 10-foot long, and then 4 2x4s that are 12-foot long. Do not use the 12-foot long boards yet. Those will be used towards the end. The first cut you're going to make will be the 60 identical shelf supports. These are going to be cut at 30.25 inches long. And if you notice here, I cut these shelf supports at a 45-degree angle for 2 reasons. Easier sliding, the angle guides the tote into the rack, and then tote protection. It prevents the tote flaps from catching the sharp 90-degree angles. So this cut is very simple. You take the 30 1/4 inch long 2x4 and then about halfway through, so at 3/4 of an inch, cut out this blue part at 45 degrees. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other end there as well. The next step is going to be to make these ladder structures. So we have our shelf supports here from the previous step. And now we're introducing a new lumber size here. So it's represented in the green. This is 77 7/8 of an inch long. And you're going to add these shelf supports to the green components here. The spacing is going to be 10 7/16 of an inch away from the edge here. The next one is going to be 11 15/16 of an inch there. Same here, same here, same here. And then in the end, you should have 2 3/16 of an inch left over. So you're going to attach the shelf supports with 2.5 inch long screws. Do not use longer screws so that the screws don't poke through on the other end. I definitely recommend that you pre-drill and countersink these screws to make sure that the wood doesn't split, and then also use wood glue as well so that there's additional strength too. So you're going to need a total of 7 of these identical ladder structures, and then some of them are going to be slightly modified. The modification is you're going to be adding one more layer of these shelf supports directly on top of the other one as well. So they're going to be lined up. The spacing will be the same. So 10 7/16 of an inches away from the edge, 11 15/16 inch away from that one. Same here, same here, same here. And then the edge is 2 3/16 of an inch left over. So you need to attach these using 2.5 inch long screws. Use wood glue, pre-drill, and countersink just like you did with the other ones. So you should have a total of 5 of these double-sided ladder structures and then 2 of these single-sided ladder structures. All right, now you need to put everything together. So this is where we're introducing those 12-foot long 2x4s. You're going to need 2 2x4s that are 136.5 inches long, represented in the blue here. These are identical. And you're going to add your single-sided ladder structure. So it's going to be facing inwards, and you would need 3.5 inch long screws. Pre-drill this, use wood glue, countersink it, make sure the wood doesn't split. And go ahead and add the second one here as well. So in the same way, 3.5 inch long screws, pre-drill, countersink, use wood glue, also facing inward. And now we're going to be adding the double-sided ladder structures. These are going to be added to the inside of the rack. So you're going to be spacing these out 21 inches apart. So that means from this edge of the 2x4 to that edge of the 2x4, it's 21 inches. So you need to use 3.5 inch long screws here, pre-drill, countersink, and then same thing here, 21 inches, just like before. And then same here, 21 inches. You can use a spacer to make sure that everything is nice and even. And then same here. And then go ahead and add your last one here. So it's gonna it should all align 21 inches between each one of these. That's the space. And again, use wood glue, pre-drill, 3.5 inch screws, and countersink the screws. So next we're going to be adding 2 more of those 136.5 inch long boards. So these will be the last 2 remaining 12-foot long boards that you should have. And you're going to add it with 3.5 inch screws here, pre-drill, countersink, use wood glue. And the rack is now going to be pretty massive. So you're going to want to attach it, or secure it rather, so it doesn't sway side to side. I highly recommend you get these L-shaped brackets. And let me show you where they go. So they're going to go on the corners of the rack. This will prevent the rack from swaying side to side. I'm going to link the ones that I purchased on Amazon. And the reason why I like the ones that I purchased is because the holes that they had pre-drilled were more in the center of the bracket versus on the sides, and that makes for a more secure joint. So go ahead and add all 8 of those corner braces, and then secure the rack to the actual garage. So the rack is big. Before you add items or totes, you definitely need to secure it so that it doesn't topple over, or if somebody tries to climb it, so it doesn't fall on them. So if we look here, I have these L-shape kind of ties or brackets that I'm using here. So you're gonna need to attach the brackets to the actual frame of the tote rack. So use 1-inch screws here. And then if we remove the drywall, you'll see that these actually need to attach to the studs of the garage directly. So use 3.5-inch screws or 4-inch screws to do that. And you can find the studs using a stud finder, or there's many different techniques to be able to do that. Hey, thanks for watching. If you wanted a printable PDF build guide, I will have it linked below. You can print it or download it to your phone and use it offline in the garage. It will have everything you need to be successful in building a rack. See you next time.